I was born into a family that lived and breathed religion. My father led worship in our small-town church, and my mother never let a day go by without quoting scripture. Our home smelled of old Bibles and brewed coffee every Sunday morning, and gospel hymns floated through the halls like incense. But for me, it was all noise, ritual, empty words. I didn't hate God yet, I just didn't care. I remember sitting on the wooden pews as a child, staring at the stained glass windows while the preacher shouted about heaven and hell. I wasn't afraid. I didn't feel anything. To me, faith was a cage people willingly locked themselves in. At school, kids called me the pastor's boy, though my father wasn't a pastor. They assumed that because my parents were devoted, I was too. That label felt like a chain around my neck, and I spent my teenage years trying to break it. I promised myself one thing. The moment I turned 18, I'd leave all this behind. When I finally turned 18, I walked out of my parents' house with nothing but a duffel bag and a hunger for the life they warned me about. No more curfews, no more prayers before meals, no more sermons about a God who loves me but seems so absent. Freedom tasted like neon lights, laughter spilling from crowded bars, and the burn of whiskey on my throat. At first it was intoxicating, literally. Every night was a celebration of my independence. I partied until sunrise, surrounded by people who told me I was fun, fearless, unstoppable. Then came gambling. It started as a joke, a poker game with college friends, but when I won big, something in me snapped. The thrill, the rush of turning a handful of chips into stacks of cash. It was like electricity in my veins. Soon, poker nights turned into casino trips, and before I knew it, gambling wasn't a game anymore. It was a god. Women? They were part of the package. No strings, no commitments, no rules. I convinced myself that love was a lie and pleasure was the only truth. The more I rebelled, the freer I thought I was. But what I didn't know then was that I wasn't breaking chains. I was forging new ones. By 23, I was unrecognizable from the boy who once sat in church pews. I had money, piles of it. Gambling had made me rich, or so it seemed. I wore designer clothes, drove a car that turned heads, and lived in a sleek apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city lights. I was the guy everyone wanted to be around, the life of every party, the man who bought rounds for the whole bar and still had enough cash to flash for photos. People called me lucky, but I knew it wasn't luck. It was skill, strategy, and the kind of cold heart that didn't care who lost as long as I won. Nights bled into mornings in smoke-filled rooms where cards slapped tables and whiskey poured like water. The sound of slot machines became my lullaby. I thought I had conquered life, that I had escaped the cage of religion and built my own kingdom. But kingdoms built on sand always fall, and mine was already cracking, though I refused to see it. In the middle of my so-called success, I discovered a new obsession, hating Christians. Missionaries on street corners, smiling like they had all the answers. They made my blood boil. They reminded me of everything I ran from, everything I despised. When one of them tried to hand me a Bible outside a casino, I laughed in his face. "Keep your fairy tales," I sneered. "Your Jesus is dead." I didn't just reject them, I humiliated them. Every chance I got, I ridiculed their faith. On social media, I posted memes mocking God. At parties, I made Christianity the punchline. I told myself it was harmless, but deep down, I hated them because they had something I didn't: peace. A peace I couldn't buy, win, or drink. The more I tried to silence that truth, the louder my hate grew. Until it wasn't just hate, it was persecution. Words were my weapons, and I used them like bullets against anyone who dared to preach Jesus to me. But here's the thing about God. You can run as far as you want. You can curse his name, tear down his people, and drown yourself in sin. But when he decides to find you, he will. One night, after another wild party that ended at sunrise, I came home to my luxurious apartment. The city lights glittered like diamonds beneath my floor-to-ceiling windows. Empty bottles lay across the marble counter, and laughter still echoed in my ears. I was untouchable, or so I thought. I leaned back in my leather chair, savoring another glass of whiskey, when something changed. The air grew still, unnaturally still. The hum of the city outside vanished. Even my heartbeat felt distant. Then, a glow began to fill the room, soft at first, like moonlight slipping through curtains, but growing brighter, stronger, until the entire room shone with a radiance I'd never seen before. And then I saw him. An angel. Not like the ones in paintings, all soft wings and golden harps. No, this being radiated power and purity so intense, it made me drop the glass in my hand. His presence pressed on me like a weight. not crushing, but undeniable. His voice was deep, echoing like 1,000 whispers in a cave. "You are walking toward death. Turn back before it consumes you." I stared at him, breathless, every hair on my body standing on end. For a flicker of a second, fear clawed at my heart. But then, pride roared louder. I laughed in the face of an angel. "Turn back? Look around," I sneered, gesturing at the luxury surrounding me. "I've never been more alive." He stepped closer, his gaze piercing me. "This path ends in destruction. You will not escape it." And then, just as suddenly as he came, he was gone. No flash, no sound, just gone. The glow faded and I was alone in the dim apartment. My hand shook as I poured another drink, muttering to myself, "Hallucination, that's all. Too much whiskey." But deep down, something cracked that night, something I couldn't explain. The angel's warning haunted me like a shadow I couldn't shake. His words played in my mind at random moments, while I sat at a poker table, while I raised a glass in a crowded bar, while I lay tangled in silk sheets after another meaningless night. This path ends in destruction. I tried drowning it in pleasure, piling on more parties, more women, more everything. But nothing silenced that echo inside me. For the first time in years, sin felt heavy, empty, like chewing ash. One night, I stared at myself in the mirror after stumbling home drunk. My eyes were bloodshot, my skin pale under the golden lights. I touched the glass and whispered, "What are you doing to yourself?" The question scared me, because I didn't have an answer. But I still didn't change. I kept running harder than ever, because I was terrified of slowing down and facing whatever truth was hunting me. It happened on a Friday night, just after I left the casino. My pockets were heavy with cash, my ego soaring after a massive win. I slid into my car, a sleek black machine that roared like a beast when I pressed the gas. The rain fell in silver sheets as I sped down the highway, music thundering, adrenaline pumping. Then, out of nowhere, headlights blinded me. A truck. It swerved into my lane. I jerked the wheel, tires screeching, and the world spun, a violent whirl of rain, glass, and steel. The crash was deafening, metal twisted. My body slammed against the seatbelt with bone-crushing force, and then, darkness. When I opened my eyes, I was hanging upside down in the wreckage, blood dripping onto shattered glass. The smell of gasoline filled the air. Fire flickered somewhere nearby. I tried to move, but pain tore through my body. "God?" The word slipped out of my mouth like a stranger's name. "Please." Then everything faded to black. When I woke up, the room was white. Too white. A hospital. Machines beat softly beside me, tubes snaked into my arms, and my body felt like it had been stitched back together with fire. But I wasn't alone. Someone stood at the foot of my bed. At first I thought it was a doctor, but then I saw his face. A face so full of light, so full of love, it made the angel look like a candle compared to the sun. My heart knew before my mind did. It was him, Jesus. He didn't shout. He didn't condemn. He just stepped closer and spoke with a voice that sounded like the calm after every storm. "I saved you because I'm not done with you." Tears streamed down my face before I could stop them. Me, the man who mocked him, cursed him, denied him. And yet, here he was, eyes filled with mercy I didn't deserve. He touched my hand gently and said, "You've been searching for life in dead things. I have better plans for you, plans you cannot imagine." Something shattered inside me that day, not bones, but chains. The weight I'd carried for years lifted, replaced by a peace so deep it made me sob like a child. For the first time in my life, I whispered words I never thought I'd say. "I believe. Forgive me, Lord. Please forgive me." And he did. Right there. In that hospital room, my old life died, and a new one began. After Jesus vanished, I lay there trembling in that hospital bed, tears soaking the thin white sheet. The monitors beat steadily beside me, but all I could hear was his voice. "I saved you because I'm not done with you." I replayed those words like a broken record. Not done with me? After everything I've done? I thought of the nights I mocked him, the souls I dragged further into sin, the way I spat on his name with my words and my life. And yet, he came for me. For the first time in my life, I understood grace. Not the kind you hear about in Sunday school, but the kind that hits you like a tidal wave when you least deserve it. The kind that breaks you, shatters your pride, and leaves you on your knees, even if those knees are under a hospital blanket. I prayed like a child that night, no fancy words, just raw, trembling honesty. "Jesus, I'm yours. Whatever you want, whatever you ask, my life is yours, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid of surrender. I was desperate for it. When I left the hospital weeks later, I wasn't the same man who had walked into that casino on the night of the crash. My body bore scars, but my soul felt brand new. Every sunrise looked different, brighter, deeper, alive with a beauty I had been blind to before. I started reading the Bible while lying on that stiff hospital bed. The words weren't dead ink anymore. They were alive. They burned. They healed. I devoured every page like a starving man. And the more I read, the more I wept, because every verse seemed written for me. The prodigal, the blasphemer, the fool saved by mercy. But there was something else I couldn't ignore: the money. The fortune I had made through sin, lies, and destruction. It sat in my bank account like a rotting treasure. Every time I looked at it, I felt sick. That money was a chain, and I knew I couldn't keep it. So one day, I emptied it all, every dollar. I donated to orphanages, feeding programs, and shelters for the homeless. I wrote anonymous checks to charities I trusted. As I watched those numbers drop to zero, a strange thing happened. I felt free. For the first time, I wasn't owned by money, and I whispered through tears, "Lord, this was never mine to begin with." Don't get me wrong, change wasn't easy. My old friends laughed in my face when I told them I was done gambling. Some called me weak. Others tempted me with offers that made my old cravings stir. But every time I felt the pull of my past, I remembered that hospital room, that voice, and I whispered to myself, "Not today. I belong to Jesus now." With no savings left, by choice, I got a job washing dishes at a small diner. It wasn't glamorous, not like the fast life I once flaunted, but it was honest, and every paycheck felt like a victory. I started volunteering at church, stacking chairs and sweeping floors, happy just to serve. But God wasn't done with me. One Sunday, after service, the pastor pulled me aside and said, "You have a story, and someone out there needs to hear it." I shook my head. "Me? No, I'm nobody." He smiled. "Exactly. And that's why God will use you." Those words lit a fire in me I couldn't ignore. I began sharing my story, first in small groups, then at youth gatherings, then in prisons where men stared at me with hollow eyes that looked just like mine once did. And every time I spoke, I felt that same presence I felt in the hospital, Jesus standing beside me, reminding me, "This is why I saved you." The first time I saw someone cry and whisper, "I want what you have," I knew I'd found my calling. This wasn't about me anymore. It was about Him, about the grace that reached into a wrecked life and pulled me out before I burned everything to ashes. I started going to bars, not to drink, but to reach the broken men slumped over glasses of despair. I went to casinos, not to gamble, but to look those gamblers in the eye and tell them, there's more to life than this. Some laughed just like I once did. Others listened. And a few, just a few, followed me out into a new life. And that was enough to keep me going. The first time I stood in front of a crowd to share my testimony, my knees shook so hard I thought they'd give out. It was a small church, maybe 30 people, but to me, it felt like an army. I gripped the pulpit, took a deep breath, and began. "My name is David, and for most of my life, I hated everything about God." Gasps rippled through the room, but I kept going. I told them everything: the parties, the gambling, the women, the pride, the angel's warning, the crash, and the night Jesus found me in a hospital bed. I didn't sugarcoat it. I bared my scars because I knew there were people in that room who had their own. When I finished, something unexpected happened. People didn't just clap, they came forward, weeping. Men and women knelt at the altar, praying through tears. One man grabbed my hand and whispered, "If He could save you, maybe He can save me." That night, I felt a fire ignite in my bones, a passion to reach the broken, the forgotten, the people who thought God could never love them, because I was one of them once. It started small, sharing my testimony in small groups, youth gatherings, and recovery centers. But soon, doors opened I never imagined. Prisons called, shelters called, churches in other cities invited me to speak. And I went, not for fame, not for applause, but for one reason. I couldn't keep quiet about what Jesus did for me. But I didn't stop at churches. I went back to the places where I once drowned in sin, the bars, the clubs, the gambling dens. I stood in the shadows where broken men sat hunched over glasses of regret and whispered, "I know what you're feeling, but there's hope." Some cursed me. Some laughed in my face. One man spat on my shoes and sneered, "Preacher boy, you ain't nothing but a fraud." And maybe once that would have broken me. But now, I just smiled and said, "Jesus loves you anyway. The truth is, rejection didn't scare me anymore. I'd already been face to face with death. I knew what mattered now. But Satan doesn't let go without a fight. The deeper I went into the darkness to pull others out, the harder the attacks came. Old friends turned into enemies. Some of them hated the new me, said I thought I was better than them. One night, after leaving an outreach event in a rough neighborhood, I was walking to my car when I felt a shadow fall over me. Before I could turn, fists slammed into my face. I hit the pavement hard, tasting blood. Boots crashed against my ribs as laughter rang out. "Still holy now, preacher boy? Still think your Jesus can save you?" One of them sneered. For a moment, rage burned in me. The old me wanted to fight back, to grab a bottle and smash it over someone's head. But then I heard another voice, soft, steady, unmistakable. "Bless those who persecute you." So I did the unthinkable. While lying on that cold, wet pavement, blood pooling under me, I prayed, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." And as they walked away laughing, I lay there broken, but undefeated, because love is stronger than hate. That night in the hospital, again, I realized something. This mission would cost me everything: comfort, safety, maybe even my life. But I also realized something greater. Jesus was worth it all. When I recovered, I went back out with more fire than ever. I preached in places no one else wanted to go, under bridges, in alleys, in drug dens that smelled like despair. And every time I saw a hardened face soften, every time a trembling voice whispered, "Pray for me," I saw a glimpse of glory. One night, after a small outreach, a man came up to me, shaking, crying. He pressed a crumpled note into my hand and walked away. When I opened it, my breath caught. "I was going to end my life tonight, but your story gave me hope. Thank you." That night, I fell to my knees under the streetlights, tears streaming down my face. This is why you saved me," I whispered. And I knew, no matter what came next, I would never turn back. Part 17, When the Storm Hits. The ministry grew faster than I could keep up with. Churches were calling. Invitations poured in from cities I'd never heard of. Social media lit up with my story, some praising me, others tearing me apart, but the fame never mattered to me. What mattered were the lives being changed. But with growth came new battles. Nights when I'd wake up drenched in sweat, nightmares clawing at me, whispers in my head saying, "You're still the same sinner. You'll fall again." And then the threats started. Anonymous messages, dark warnings. One read, "Stop preaching, or you won't live to regret it." For the first time since the hospital, fear tried to creep in. I knelt in my room, shaking, and cried out, "Lord, I'm scared, but if this is what it costs, then give me strength to finish what you started." And just like before, His presence wrapped around me like a shield. Fear didn't vanish overnight, but courage burned brighter. Then came the hardest test of my life. My younger sister, the only family member still speaking to me, called me one night, her voice trembling. "David, it's cancer. They say it's bad." I dropped the phone, fell to my knees. For the first time since the crash, doubt slammed into me like a tidal wave. "God, why? She's innocent. Heal her, please." Days turned into weeks. I prayed. I fasted. I begged. And yet, she grew weaker. I felt the old anger creeping back, the whispers saying, "He doesn't care." He never did. One night, sitting beside her hospital bed, I whispered, "I can't lose you." "Not now." She smiled weakly, gripped my hand, and said words that broke me. "Don't you dare give up on him. If I go home, I'll be with Jesus. You keep fighting." She died 2 days later. And when she did, something inside me shattered, but not my faith. Her words became my anthem. I stood at her funeral, tears blurring my vision, and said, "She finished her race, and I'm going to finish mine." Months later, I was preaching in the same neighborhood where I had been beaten years before. And then, I saw them. The same men who left me bleeding in the street. They stood in the back, arms crossed, smirking. Everything in me wanted to walk away. But then Jesus whispered in my heart, "Forgive them, the way I forgave you." So I walked right up to them after the service. My hands shook as I said, "You probably don't remember me, but I remember you. And I just want you to know, I forgive you. Jesus loves you." One of them, tattoos crawling up his neck, laughed at first, but then his smile faded. His eyes filled with something I never expected, tears. He dropped his head and whispered, "Man, I'm tired. I want out." That night, I prayed with the very man who once tried to destroy me. And as he sobbed into my shoulder, I felt the weight of heaven in that moment. This was the power of grace. Now I stand here years later, a man who once hated everything about God, now living for one purpose, to tell you this. He is real, He is merciful, and no matter what you've done, He's not done with you. I don't know your story. Maybe you're drowning in sin like I was. Maybe you've lost everything. Or maybe you have everything, but your soul feels empty. Listen to me. The same Jesus who found me in a hospital bed is reaching for you right now. He's saying, I have better plans for you. So what will you do? Keep running? Or surrender? If He can save a man like me, He can save anyone, including you